Hello and welcome to
Hey, we like your pod.
Hi, it's Dawn here, and I am joined by my trusted partner, Matt. How you doing, Matt? How was your week?
Oh, goodness. I'm just going to die over here for a second. Sorry. I'm great. Oh, my goodness. No, I'm great. I'm having a good week. Things are flowing really nicely on... I'm so sorry, listeners. My goodness. Sorry about that. All right. On Monday, I had the day off because my kids were home from school for like a staff development day kind of a thing. And so given that it was the day after the Super Bowl, I thought, heck, I'm just going to stay home with them. So that was nice. And then tomorrow I'm taking the day off to go see the new Marvel movie. So by tomorrow, of course, we're talking about on Friday because we record on Thursdays.
Oh, that's
so
right.
Looking forward to seeing the Quantumania tomorrow. And otherwise, a pretty easy week at work and at home, and just really excited about the new advisor who I'm training at work. She's come along great. So, yeah, things are great right now. How about you, Dawn? How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm doing well. It was a little bit of a rough day. I'm just still dealing with my health issues, so I was on the phone a lot with some doctors and stuff like that, and And one of my best friends, she's from Idaho. She called me and I had to call her back like 15 minutes later. And in between the time that this is horrible. This is probably not very uplifting, but it's what happened. So I'm going to just say it. So in the 15 minutes between when she called me and when I called her back, she got a call from her doctor and she has lung cancer.
Oh no.
And I was like the first person she was just in her driveway, like all devastated. And it was just the weirdest thing. I mean, just, friends, things can change on a dime, and it's just really important to make sure that you're living your life in the way you really should, whatever that is to you. I mean, everybody feels differently about that, and I know she does. And we talked briefly about it, but she was just so that really rattled me. And then I had to go, unfortunately, I had to go to urgent care and to get some lab work done. And it was urgent. And they told me to go to urgent care. And I got to urgent care. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we're going to urgently do these tests. And I walked out of the lab part, and then you wait for the doctor, and then I was actually outside because I prefer to wait outside, and it's nice out and all that. And the nurse walks out and said, "Oh, you need to go to the ER." And I was like, "What?" They said their machine was broken and the results wouldn't be for 4 hours. Blah, 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 blah. And I said, "Well, emergency? I don't feel like I need to go to the emergency room." And I'm like, "I'm sure I'll be okay. I'll just go home and wait." And then I texted my doctor and I said, "That's what they told me." And they're like, "No, you need to go to the emergency room."
Oh no.
And I didn't go. I'm fine.
You're fine?
I'm fine. I mean, it's not emergent what's going on. And they got the lab. In fact, I was just going to check to see for the results, but if they're not good, then I can always go tomorrow, or if I feel worse, I can go to the emergency room anytime. I just wasn't like, why did I just have all this blood work done and go to the urgent care?
Well, seriously.
So it was just kind of tiring. Just tiring.
Yeah.
I was just talking with Jamie Cheesebutt. We were talking about cats.
Excellent.
She wants LaFleur.
Your old cat, LaFleur? She wants your
Pepe,
old cat?
yes. Yeah. I put a post up on Twitter because Pepe's foster mom has to find him a home. He can't come back here, unfortunately, because of Tasha's health. And so I just shared it with her because I shared it with Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And she's like, "I want him." So we're working on that. After I'm done recording the podcast, we're going to talk about how to approach her landlord, because in
Mhm.
California you can have a cat. You don't, even if the lease says you can't have a cat, you can have a cat if you need it as an emotional support animal.
Hmm.
And and the doctors write a letter, and I was explaining that to her, and she's like, well, I'll just send him a link. I'm like, no. He's gonna say no matter what you do. We need to do this the right way. You go through your doctor. Anyway, so I'm gonna try and help her out with that. She's excited. She was disappointed because she's like, she just, like a normal person would, she's like texted her landlord, hey, can I have I think she said pet, not cat. Well, pet could mean a Rottweiler, you know what I mean? It could mean
Mhm.
a giraffe. It could mean
Yeah.
an ape. It could be, and that's why I said, well, you probably, and I'm like, don't write back, just wait. Let's strategize.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping I help my little grandkid learn how to strategize for real life problems,
Mhm.
because that's what grandmas are for.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
That was my day.
That's a lot of stuff. I can see how that'd be a tiring day, both physically and like emotionally, you know.
Yeah,
So totally get that.
it is. Otherwise, things are cool.
I'm pretty amazed that California is like some kind of amazing magical land where you're entitled to have a cat. That's pretty awesome. Like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some people get dogs. I think some people get like gerbils and other things. But from what I was told, because I got a cat and my lease says no pets. And it was actually the maintenance person who's like, oh, you can get a cat. Like everybody in this building has a cat.
Emotional
And
sport
then,
cats. Yeah.
right. Which I didn't know, because I don't know that. And so but I think she's the one who told me about the emotional support pet thing. So I just called my doctor and they whipped out a letter. There's like a form letter. And
It's such a common thing. They're like, I just get the form. You're just gonna fill it out.
because everybody does it. But evidently, well, people need emotional support. It's not,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a joke. But she went so far as to say they absolutely cannot keep you from having a pet. I was like, really? Okay. So that's what I want to impart to my grandkid.
Lovely. I love it.
Yeah, California is pretty cool in a lot of ways.
I get that impression.
Yeah, not every way, and some people complain about everything, but it's, I wouldn't want to live in like the South. I would have a hard time living in the South, where everybody's walking around with guns in their pockets and rifles
that
over their
stereotype,
shoulder.
Don. I don't know. I think that might be a stereotype you're playing into there, but
Well, here's why I say that. I was in Houston a couple of years ago for a thing with my friend, and we were walking around Rice University, and and we were just walking, and we were going to brunch and shopping and stuff before the event in the evening, and it was a really nice street. It was this beautiful area, and I don't know what got into me, but this guy, there was like traffic for some reason. Okay, there was just stopped on this beautiful road, like greenery, and I mean just beautiful southern road, and off to my left immediately this guy ran into, barely tapped, but let his car roll accidentally. He was probably looking at his phone or something, into the car in front of him, and barely tapped it. But the woman got out of her car, and she was probably older than me, and she was like this tall woman, and she was so mean and just berating this kid. The poor kid was like on his way to work. He said, I'm so sorry. He was like this. And she's like, ah, I quit. I mean, it was just like her face and everything. And I piped in. I was like, leave him alone. Leave him alone, lady, or what's your problem? Something like that. And my girlfriend is from Texas, but she lived here. We were just traveling there, and she grabs me and she's like, John, this is Texas. People carry guns. Let's go. And she like swept me away. So that's why I have that impression. So
That's funny because I thought the story was going to end with like, and this old woman pulls out a sawed-off shotgun and blew the guy away or something like terrible like that.
she might have. I mean,
that might have happened after you left the scene.
well, I know. And my friend's a doctor. She's like, we can't be here. Like, we need to go right now. It was not a good situation. And I was like trying to pick up, but I'm the kind of person who will stand up for you, I'm not crazy or anything, but it just happened. It just struck me, like he needed a friend.
Mm-hmm.
I think I said something to him. He had his window open, so that she could yell at him and tower over him. All she was doing was abusing him. She wasn't accomplishing anything. She wasn't saying, could I get your insurance card? Or, I mean, you could have even yelled and said, that was really dumb and I'm in a hurry. And, that was dumb, but she wouldn't stop. It was just, it went on. Yeah. It was really, really mean-hearted.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know, Hispanic or something and super polite. And I just felt like that's just not right.
It was an accident. It's an accident.
It's an accident. It's not like
deal with it, move on.
I mean, you couldn't even see a dent. It was like a little tap, Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So that's why I say that about the stuff. I don't know. Oh, Too Deep. Hi, Too Deep. Yes, California is the land of entitlement. Haven't you heard? Yes. It's probably true.
Well, it's like you said, not everything about California is great, but that's absolutely the case everywhere. There's no perfect place to live, because even when you describe like their paradise where you lived on with like the perfect weather and you're by the ocean, even still there's things about, anywhere, Carlsbad, San Diego, California, the South, Ohio, that are they're not perfect, but there's good things about them too. And, me, I always focus on the good things.
That's right. That's right. And hello, Too Deep. It's nice to see you. So we're going to talk about football. We're going to talk about football tonight, right?
Yeah.
And Matt has some superlatives from the week, which I'm really looking forward to hearing about. And I will be completely honest. This has been a week of me just having zero time to do anything. So I have no superlatives, but I do want to. My superlative is, how super is the Super Bowl?
Go for it, Don. You have the floor.
I just want to say I was just enjoying the game. And I didn't have any dog in that fight, as they say, since we're speaking with Southern expressions. I've been watching that Southern trial all week too. And everybody there like has a million guns. They're like, oh yeah, I keep one in my pickup and I keep one in my car. And we have 2 rifles in the back and they have a gun room. So that's why I have that impression. It's just not something
that's going to add to it.
It adds to it. So I got Southern charm, Southern Gothic on the mind right now. So, okay, what was I saying? So I didn't have a dog in the fight. I was enjoying the game, enjoying just the day. And I was like, this is the last day of football for the year. And it's officially, what is it? So what episode is this of ours? 24? So that means there's 38. No. 52. What's 52 minus 24? 28.
Honor math. Here we go.
28 weeks.
28
till football. So 28 weeks till football.
Oh God, that's just
so I was enjoying the game and and I was all like, "Yeah, this is nice." And it was a nice game. It was close. It wasn't like a blowout.
Yeah. The refs were letting them play for almost the whole game.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden that dumb call at the end, and and the Eagles were ahead almost the entire game. So, and I mean, it's easy to argue. Yeah, the Chiefs were gaining momentum, and they probably would have won, but it probably would have gone to overtime.
Yep.
And we would have had overtime, and wouldn't that have been great? And so I didn't feel like, oh, hey, the refs ruined it. It was rigged. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it was just such a nice game. It ended so abruptly because of that. And it just killed. It was just like, nah, I don't like this. I'm glad it's over. And, I turned it off, and I don't care what happens on a football game. I will not turn that game off until the end. I actually turned it again. I didn't watch the end.
Really?
I didn't watch them shake hands, which is usually my favorite part. I didn't watch any of the celebrations. It is my favorite part. I was like, I'm having none of this. Good night, Irene. I was done. I was just really mad. I was just really, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, it took all the air out of the game and all the excitement just kind of like leaked out really fast. It's like, oh, that's very
Yeah.
anticlimactic, way to end this. And let me catch you up to speed on what you missed then.
Okay.
Basically, everyone on the Chiefs side was excited, and the Kelsey brothers hugged again, and then stupid, what's his name? The old announcer guy, former Steeler, Terry Bradshaw. Then Terry Bradshaw made it all about him on the podium. And then Travis Kelsey was a big ding dong on the podium. And it was all just like the most annoying stuff, basically.
So I turned it off on the because I couldn't have tolerated that. Terry I can't deal with him.
Look, I'm not gonna say like he should go die, because that's
no.
People say that's terrible.
No, that's terrible.
He needs to retire. I'm all for that. Like, just
do something else.
Do something that's not in the public eye. Get off my TV, Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah, I don't want to see him. Who's the other old guy? The guy from Dallas, the previous Dallas coach. He's kind of older. The two of them can both retire.
Get those old guys out of here.
And I don't care what Travis Kelsey says. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything.
Sick of that guy.
I did catch wind of that. He tweeted something weird, but I was like, I don't care. I disconnected like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Game's done. I'm done. Whatever.
I'm done for the season until I did message Andrew Murtay to find out when mock draft would be coming up, so I can start.
So you're prepped for that. Start working into that.
So I'm not done with football. I'm certainly not done with being a fan, but yeah,
I hear it totally.
Is that how you felt?
Oh, I was half cheering for the Eagles. Not for any like particularly strongly felt reason. It's just like I wanted to pick a team to cheer for, and I'll go with the Eagles. There's a lot of things I like about watching that team. A lot of fun stuff they do. So I was pretty excited when the Eagles, when I got to halftime and they were just dominating the first half. That was very exciting. And then in the second half was like, ooh, this is actually becoming a game now. This is kind of fun. Mm-hmm. So for it to end the way it did, like I was kind of bummed the Eagles didn't win, but more than that, it's like you said, it's just like the game was so abruptly ending there.
It was just
with that call. It was like, why were they making it about that all of a sudden? Why was this the moment they call a thing that they've been just kind of swallowing the whistles about all game? Mm-hmm. And like you, I'm not trying to say it's rigged or whatever, but it's not great. It's not great.
No. The reffing the last two, it's just getting worse and worse.
Anyhow, since we're being a little negative, more so than usual, I'm just going to add one more thing, which is speaking of Travis Kelsey, this notion that like a lot of the Chiefs fans and Chiefs players have kind of like this narrative they put forward that like nobody thought they could win and everybody counted them out. I just want to say that's ridiculous, because maybe people going into the season were like, oh, without, Tyreek, what are they going to do without their top receiver? How's this going to work out? And then they quickly showed everyone that they still could play really well. And that was where that chatter died very quickly. So this whole idea that they were counted out or whatever, like, give me a break. Dumb. It's so dumb. It's so ridiculous. But I mean, there's probably been narratives that like, we as Packers fans have bought into at times that were, for us made sense, but for any outside perspective would have been like, what are you talking about? So like, I understand like any fan base is going to be, is going to fall into that trap from time to time. But this one is just, it's so silly. It's just so silly.
Well, this one is really silly because of the whole Mahomes, like being the darling now of the NFL. And it's, it's just, I mean, you could see another team saying that, but not the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs. They have like literally the most talented quarterback playing right now, perhaps one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Like, come on,
coaching and everything.
Yeah, Andy Reid's an amazing coach, and there's so many great players on the team. Like, nobody's counting you out. Get off that narrative. It's ridiculous. All right, I'm done with that rant, Dawn. So
so happy Super Bowl, goodbye to the season, and hello, new season, new off-season activities. And I can't wait to hear your superlatives. And
you want me to get into them? Should I get into them now? Or?
Yeah, did you get it? Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
Okay, did you via Sarah on the Wednesday Pack-A-Day podcast? Did you learn anything about Mr. light deprivation. I'm not saying his name.
Mr. Rogers. Different Mr. Rogers than we usually think of. Did we learn anything about him? No, I mean, did you actually listen to that episode, Dawn? Or
I didn't.
oh, it's
Not yet.
It's a good recap that they did because they both. So Dusty wasn't on the episode this week. He had some voice stuff or something, I guess.
Oh, he said he got RSV.
Bummer.
I saw that tweet. Yes.
I'll have to reach out, wish him well later.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so like the previous week where Sarah wasn't on there, they spent more time digging into the stuff from the Pat McAfee show. But it sounds like there was a lot of focus on like how Rogers is going to go to the bathroom. Like, this is what we're talking about. This is off-season content, I guess. That's kind of where we're at. So was I mean,
Rogers there?
Yeah, he was there. Yeah.
Oh, and he
It sounds like that's gonna be his last one for a while, probably.
So he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't gone in yet.
Oh, the retreat. Yeah, I think they said it's gonna be like later this month. I think. Like, I don't think he's in the dark yet. I think it's coming soon. But yeah.
I wish he'd just get in the dark so he could get in the light already. Get it over.
See what you did there. I like that.
What's he waiting for? Do it.
I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's where I'm at with it. Whatever.
Okay. So that's what was the conversation is like how
are you gonna poop and what kind of toilet paper and
is he gonna eat in there?
I mean, there's like the two slots they talked about, famously where they put the food in through the slot. I guess there is a light switch. Like the door's not locked. He could leave if he wanted to. He could turn the light on if he wanted to. It's not
like a panic button.
Yeah, it's not solitary confinement. It's not jail. He can leave if he wants to. So
I bet he leaves.
I think so. I don't know. He's competitive, and that's going to include competing against like force of will and the challenge of being in the dark for 4 days. I think he's going to last.
What if they give him something that he thinks is worms and he has to look at it before he eats it?
I mean, maybe he'll turn the light on for a second. I don't think that's super bad. I don't know. I just think he'll be in there for 4 days is what I'm saying.
Oh, so he might have light.
He might turn on from time to time. Yeah. He can if he wants to. There's a light switch. That's what we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I will lose any respect I have for him if he turns that light on.
We'll never know.
He'd have to tell us.
He probably would. He's an oversharer, as we've seen. So,
yeah, he'd probably be like, I couldn't take it. I turned the light on after a night or something like that. Okay, let's go. What do you have for us this week?
Yeah, for spoilers. Okay, so you're talking about gearing up for draft season and starting to get dig into it, learn more about what's out there, so that you're ready for mock draft situations, like the one that Andrew Mertig and Kyle Fellows do with the Friday Pack a Day. So to help you with that, Dawn, I've got another really great piece of draft content. Last week I had talked about actually, again, Andrew and Kyle, what they were doing with some of the draft stuff. Well, this week I heard a really great podcast that Justice Mosqueda and Tyler Brook did for Acme Packing Company. And it was entitled Draft Talk 1.0, Setting the Table for the 2023 NFL Draft. And isn't that exactly what you need at this point?
Exactly what I need. Perfect.
It's like here is the task before the Packers, because Justice and Tyler talked about what are the positional needs for the team, and so then who are some of the top players, namely in safety and in tight end.
Okay.
Two of our absolutely biggest, most people agree, two of our biggest areas of need. So it talked about who are some of the best players in there and some of the other players they're looking forward to, seeing more about, talking more about, kind of seeing what happens with them. So would I say I remembered all the names I said? No, but it's starting to build those layers of hearing the names and doing the kind of stuff. And for them to focus on those areas that probably the team is going to focus on in the draft. Love that approach. Love that very much. So it was an excellent episode.
I can't wait. We can't wait. And we, of course, will share the link wherever you're listening or watching in the show notes below.
That's right. So check that out, folks. That was an excellent episode. All right. Should we do my next one, Dawn?
Yes, let's hear it.
All right. So The Athletic has a new series. So this is best new series. It's called Between the Lines. And this is a series that's going to explore the subject of race in the NFL and the problematic aspects behind it. So you're bringing together your social justice with your football. And they have one episode out so far. It's off to a great start. It's sort of an overview of race relations in the NFL, starting with like the very early teams, in the early 1900s, and who the very first black players were and what the reaction was, across the entire league to there being black players and the kind of blowback there was about that, how that eventually, kind of came around, getting into talking about the first few black coaches and how they were very successful, but like it was hard for coaches who were black men to get jobs, because of discrimination, obviously. But yet, because of that, the ones who were able to get hired typically did a lot better because they were battle tested and they had to be so good that they'd actually get hired instead of like a mediocre to like okay white guy coach. So they talked about a study that was done about the success rate of these black coaches versus white coaches and how the black coaches were more successful in the whole. So that was fascinating. They got into talking about Colin Kaepernick and the sort of like, the ripple effects of what he did and how it hasn't ended well for him, like he wasn't on a roster again, but how it has become more a thing that people talk about and that other players, stood behind with him and unified and brought more awareness, and how that helped athletes to understand better what they can do with their platform as athletes. So I'm assuming that was like sort of the overview, and they'll dig into more stuff more in depth, in further episodes, but like just off to a great start. And this kind of goes to a bigger thing that I was thinking about going into the off season. I was like, there's not gonna be as much content. It's gonna be a little bit more like just try to find some new stuff to listen to. So I was thinking maybe what I'm going to do is find some kind of podcast with like a social justice theme of some sort, because, just trying to continue to educate ourselves on these matters is very important. I'm just going to go on a little bit of a woke rant here for a second. You and me, Don, as white people, especially me as a, cisgender straight white male in the United States, like it's on me to do the work, to learn more about this stuff, to see how I can be a better ally, how I can use my intersectional, identities that are privileged to be a better ally for people who don't have as much inherent societal privilege. So that's why I want to like find stuff to, continue to dig into that. We do a lot of this at work, actually. It's a very big focus at UC right now among staff.
Yeah.
And I was thinking this week I'd also find like a completely not at all football podcast that like people have been talking about, find something like that is well reviewed, and dig into that. And then the week started and I was like, oh man, there's a lot of good content still happening this week. So like it was good that the Between the Lines thing came up, because I was like, okay, well, that actually like scratches an itch I wanted to hit while still being a football thing. So like bonus, nice.
Yeah. But
then, like I was saying, I was worried there wouldn't be much content, but I have 4 superlatives for this week. So there's still a lot of good stuff out there.
I like that. And I like that you're going to have your own little segment, your own little Between the Lines segment. We'll have to name it something else, of course. Just like I have my fraternizing with the enemy segment, right? So
I could report back on the episode every week, actually, because it's off to a great start.
Report back on that, or share whatever it is else that you found, whether it's football or not football, on that quest.
Not a bad idea.
That.
That too.
In the coaching, the disparity in the coaching is, we're going to find out soon what coaches ultimately have been hired, right? Mm-hmm. And where, that's happening right now, if it hasn't all taken place.
It's a process, but a lot of the coaches have been hired. There's a few openings still that are being settled, but most of it's done.
Head coaches, of course.
Head coaches, yeah.
So,
1 or 2 still left, I think. That haven't been hired, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was another thing, talking about the black coaches in this podcast, is that, of course, that brought up the Rooney Rule, and talked about how initially that did lead to the effect of there being more black coaches right away, but that quickly dwindled back to like the same numbers that it had been, and where we are now is kind of the same as the old numbers pre-Rooney Rule. So just a lot of food for thought in that episode. A lot of really good stuff, a lot of good perspective, a lot of good information. So highly recommend. And the great thing about it, if people are like, oh, that's a podcast through The Athletic, so I have to have a subscription, or No, you do not. You can, all the athletic podcasts are always open to anybody, subscription or not. So I would recommend checking that out.
Yeah, their podcast is free. I like it. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good reminder. I was thinking it was an article, but you said it's the podcast.
Yes.
It's a great
It's
podcast.
outstanding. I wish I had the name of the podcast creator, the narrator on the top of my head. I don't. I meant to look that up before the episode,
Oh,
and
okay.
was just ran out of time, unfortunately. But of course, that'll be in the show notes, and we'll make sure to get the name mentioned next time we talk about it. So
yeah,
outstanding work, whoever that guy is. So next one.
Yeah, and I'll look that up while you're talking.
All right. So the Packers.com website has from time to time posted like Lego reenactments of like some of the best plays and like some of the highlights and stuff. And those are always super fun. And I've wanted to talk about them before. I think I actually talked about one of them one time, probably after the Cowboys game. I think they had a really good one with Christian Watson's 3 touchdowns. But I've always wondered like who is making these, because they don't give any like attribution. They don't say who's making them. They don't say anything about it. And I've always found that so frustrating, because like I'm saying here, I have this regret about not knowing the content creator's name for the Between the Lines podcast. I've always wanted to be able to give credit to the person who's making these Lego Packers reenactment things. So finally, Dawn, we have it. Mike Spofford got a half hour like phone interview with the guy who makes them. And his name, of course, I don't have that handy either. My goodness, Matt, be more prepared. I'm pulling it up right now. He's a guy from Germany, and his name is Fabian Moritz.
Is he on staff? Is he on the Packers staff?
No, he's just like this German guy who makes these things. So the article is on Packers.com. Again, Mike Spofford wrote it. He did the interview. Okay. And it's like a nice long form, lots of cool information, getting to know this dude, Fabian Moritz, better, and like how he came to start doing these, just the whole thing. So just really great insight into this amazing creative person who does like the painstaking work to make these hilarious, 3-minute Lego videos. Because you think about like, they're so much fun to watch, and you're like, man, I can't imagine how much work went into that.
Well, I know how much work goes as a graphic designer. I just assumed it was somebody that was on the graphic design team for the Packers.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Very cool.
Yeah, so highly recommend that.
Fabian.
Just been wondering for so long, so I finally have that information. I was like, oh, thank goodness.
I like that.
All right. Well, I have one more, Dawn. You want me to launch into that?
Yeah, let me tell you something that just made me think of it having to do nothing with football, but my week again.
Yeah, go for it. Please.
Okay, so Friday, the day after we recorded our last podcast, I was going for some tests at the hospital. My friend picked me up and she said, well, guess what? Change of plan. Because I had to fast like twice last week. And so we were going to go at brunch after. I feel like I told you this. I didn't tell you this, did I?
No, I don't think you did.
So we were going to have brunch after and just do a couple quick things in the area. And she's like, change of plans. I have a Russian refugee couple coming to stay with me. Yes. So where we live, it's very close to the Mexican border. So a lot of the refugees are processed through our immigration and all that through Mexico, and then ultimately Tijuana and then San Diego. And so she agreed to have, it's a long story, but this couple stay with her. And, we're all doing stuff for them, right, to help them get settled. And as it turns out, it's a young couple, and they're escaping the war, from Russia. And I think I've talked in the past about some of the Ukrainian people that we're helping with foods and in other things. So anyway, this happened to be a couple from Russia that didn't want to participate in the war and whatnot. So they got here, and she's an artist. She's a young budding artist herself. And it just made me think of her. And there's an art event for Saturday in Laguna Beach. It's like plein air, where plein air. So it's a plein air event, it's 3 hours, and they're going to have the symphony playing and all that. And I'm like, we have to bring her to this because she wants to paint, and hopefully be bringing her to some galleries where she can show her work and maybe get get her stuff up that way. Why did I think of that? Because you mentioned this German designer. So it's just so interesting how art and sports and other things can just like break down any kind of barrier.
Yeah.
Even if you don't speak the same language, right? You can communicate through art. And so I really appreciate that. And I have a deep, deep, deep appreciation for those Lego works for sure. And especially because I know what goes into creating art and all that. And it's delightful, but I especially love that it's, a German dude. I love that. Although his name sounds French.
It kind of, yeah. I suppose so.
Fabian.
Fabian Moise.
Yes. Okay, so Too Deep said he two of her comments, comments disappeared from the chat. So Too Deep, if you want to retype your comments, we're seeing them now.
I'd be interested to see what Too Deep had to say, as always.
We want to know. So, okay. So carry on.
Oh, yes. I have one more superlative, of course. So this would be best analysis. So on the latest Blue 58, it was the continuation of John Meerdink's post-season breakdown of like evaluating each of the different position groups, which a lot of podcasters are doing now. Side shout out actually to the Father and Son Packers podcast. They're working through a lot of that with like analytics and data, and it's actually really good. In fact, I'm just gonna put that in as a fifth superlative.
I was wondering about them. How are they doing?
Really good. I picked them up like really late in the season, but
okay. I haven't. I've been meaning to ask. Okay, go ahead.
So we'll get back to John Meerdink in a second because I do want to talk about them. So
okay, good.
It's actually related because of course the Father Son Packers podcast was the podcast that was selected for the podcast scholarship that John Meerdink did with Blue 58 like before the season. So their podcast is like, still in its first season. It's a new podcast, and it's a father and a son. They talk about football. They have a really great rapport. They're very fun to listen to talk. He's kind of like how he just seems really like old Wisconsin and just kind of like, like a little gruff, but like in a funny way, a little crass.
Like Wes Hodkowitz.
But like Wes Hawk was his dad.
Yeah.
If you can imagine. Pahad. And then the guy, and I should know their names, I can't think of them now. The son, is really into like talking about the analytics and how they apply to stuff. And the dad's like pretty down with that stuff too. They both do. But yeah, the rapport, the data they bring, the perspective is a good show. I'd recommend it. So call that superlative 4, and I'll get back to Blue 58. So both of these podcasts are doing position by position postseason breakdowns of how the team did this year. Both very different approaches to how they look at it, both really great. And it's funny because so John was doing the defensive line this week, and I wish I could remember exactly how he started the episode, because he usually does like a cold open, kind of saying what he's gonna be talking about that week. And I think this week's was something like, this year the Packers defensive line was disappointing. And then and there's the theme music, and like that's like all he said. It was something like really like to the point like that. It was hilarious because they were disappointing. It was not great. But the reason why I'm talking about this episode isn't for that. That's just a side story about it. Rather, I want to talk about this because John was going to talk about just like some Super Bowl thoughts and just a couple minutes spent on that. But then it ballooned into this like TED talk about what it takes to get to the Super Bowl. And it was like just really fascinating to hear this perspective. So a couple points he made that are really sticking with me. One was that, all the teams that make it to the divisional round are all like really, really, really good teams, and all of them could win the Super Bowl. So like, what's the difference between them? Well, the difference is going to be very largely health. Like, which teams are the healthiest are the ones that are probably going to make it farthest, into the rest of the postseason and the run to the Super Bowl. But then beyond that, he was talking about like, okay, but let's compare the Packers, who didn't get that far, with the Chiefs. Like, what's the difference here? What would the Packers need to do to have had like a deeper run in the playoffs, to have had a more quote unquote successful season? Right. And he broke it down to 3 things. He was saying like the Packers were extremely unlucky, and have been, like with going back to David Bakhtiari, blowing out his knee just before the game against the Buccaneers, that if he had been in there, we probably would have won that game. It's just like really bad luck that David Bakhtiari has this like catastrophic knee injury in practice before a really important game that probably would have led to us getting a Super Bowl,
Right.
that sort of bad luck that carried through from the sort of bad luck things this year. Like, what if we had just gotten a little more points in the Giants game and Rodgers wouldn't have had to have thrown a Hail Mary and wouldn't have like injured his thumb, and how different the season would be if that hadn't been a complicating factor for the success of the team. So I've been thinking all season, especially, in comparison to the Vikings, that we've been very unlucky. Like, a lot of the wins the Vikings had were like just things went their way, and that's wonderful. That happens sometimes, it's going to happen for one team more than the other, in any given contest, of course. But suffice to say, luck isn't the only thing. He also looked at it as like the talent level, and taking the Chiefs again as an example, like just the level of talent on their team is definitely much higher than what the Packers have. Like, they just have more talented players. Their roster was built better, and some of that too is like the luck of who the people are that they brought on, and then what they're able to do in the team. And the Packers had some of that with, like, say, Keyshawn Nixon. Rudy Ford did some really great work, especially in some of the the Cowboys game specifically, for example. Some of those like really cheap guys that we got, or like Rasul Douglas the previous season, for example. Some really good work there, finding those people who had the talent, at a good price. So talent is a big thing. Luck is a big thing. And the other thing that he brought up as an important point is creativity. So he was talking about like the Packers sticking with Joe Barry and his fairly vanilla, approach to defense, and the way how he teaches their people, the defensive players, to do the stuff. Is lacking in creativity, versus some of the really cool stuff that both the Eagles and the Chiefs were doing all season, and especially in the Super Bowl. Like, there's a lot more creativity going on there. So he's saying, like, you need some luck to make it there, and like, sure, you can make your own luck if you have the creativity, if you have the talent throughout the team. And the Packers had none of these things, and that's why they were on the outside looking in, as he said. So
right.
Just a really great analysis, I thought, of just what it takes to get to the Super Bowl and be, a top tier team in a given season.
Yeah.
Just fascinating. I love when he goes off on those tangents like that, where you're like, you get to like peek inside of just, his very fascinating mind. And that was especially a good one this week.
100%. And a good way to close it out, in terms of why we're not at the Super Bowl this year. And it just reminds me too that all 32 teams in the NFL it's just a very tight margin as to what differentiates what some people call the great team, Super Bowl bound to, a crappy team. And I do not like it when people say a team stinks or they're bad. I mean, come on, they don't. This is the NFL. They're all great teams. But it is important to have that cohesiveness in terms of coaching. I do think I would have to agree on the lack of creativity. And one of the things I think about when you said that, it's such a good point that John made, but creativity happens kind of after confidence happens. And we do have a fairly young coach. And the fact that he digs his heels in and sticks with with staff that probably could, easily have moved along from. I'm not saying he lacks confidence. He's a confident guy, but I just think it's going to come with time and his confidence. And I think we'll see more creativity, maybe, hopefully, once that happens. Unless it's just the Green Bay Packers are not ever going to be creative, because they're not really known for being a creative team. They're institutional, old school. But that's such an interesting thing for him to have brought up to think about. Yeah. I would say that, who's our special teams coach? The mad Italian guy?
Rich Bisaccia.
Bisaccia. Like, he's creative.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's confident. He's super confident and he's creative. Right? I see those things going hand in hand, at least when it comes to the NFL.
Yeah, and a point that I've heard a couple times over the course of the season, I remember Dusty especially talking about it, that like a coach's goal is also to teach the things to the players so they can do it. And, so you need a good teacher. You need a coach who's a good teacher. And part of that too will be, getting the players into the right mindset and attitude to be successful. Because you look at the special teams, especially as Keyshawn Nixon emerged, and like how much swagger the special teams of all phases had.
Finally,
the special teams had swagger. They did, though.
they did, and our defense really should have been great this year. So it's really weird how it turned out. It really.
And I think that is a coaching thing. I think that's absolutely something you can look to
100%.
coaching to for the difference there.
Like,
yeah.
Mm.
Joe Barry seems like a nice guy.
Who does?
So Joe Barry seems like a nice guy.
Oh yeah, he does. Yes, he does.
Not the guy we need though, unfortunately.
No. I remember not too many press conferences back where someone asked a question. I don't even remember what the question was or who asked it, but the response was just all you can hear really in those press conferences from Matt LaFleur was that he would be willing to give over to turn over play calling.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said that, I started thinking about his brother, being on the coaching team at some point, right? With Hackett not coming back, which is probably a good move. That would be creative. I mean, and the reason I say that is that would help him with his confidence, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're brothers. When you're brothers, you have to speak, the person can finish your sentences for you practically, right? So have you heard anything about them making any kind of moves toward that, or did he go somewhere else?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm surprised. I would think that'd be a good way to get him even more confident than he already is. By the way, speaking of, I should have had a superlative here.
Oh,
that commercial Matt LaFleur did during the Super Bowl, evidently it only aired in Wisconsin. Did you see it?
I saw that it existed because somebody posted a thing about it, but I didn't actually watch it.
Okay, I posted the commercial.
Oh, okay.
On Twitter. It's so funny. So Matt LaFleur, the coach of the Green Bay Packers, for those who are listening or watching and don't know who he is, that's who he is. He's the head coach. And he's adorable and funny. And he did a commercial for basically if you have a teenager, it's something related to teen healthcare. I think. Okay. I don't even remember because I was just laughing the whole time because he played the teenager.
Okay.
Really cute. That's really good.
He's done some good commercials. There was the ones for Bell and Health, from the last couple of seasons that were really funny.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. He mentioned that, even coaches now have their own agents to get them work like that, commercial work and what. Yeah. Wow. Bolsters up their pay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he might volunteer some of it for Bell and Health and whatnot, but who knows what. But yeah, I think it was Bell and Health. I can't remember what the exact. Since I'm not in Wisconsin. I didn't really pay that much attention to what it was for. But yeah, check it out. I can put that in the cutest Super Bowl commercial. Did you notice any other? I didn't watch any of the commercials this year. I was just doing other things during the commercial.
Oh, I love watching the commercials. Yeah, no,
I normally do.
A lot of people have been complaining about it was a kind of a lackluster collection of commercials, and not a lot of them really jumped out to me or really impressed me. But there was the one for Doritos with the triangle stuff, and I can't think of his name now. Jack Harlow. A whole thing with him and giving up rapping to become a triangle player, and how then it became this huge thing for people who want to play triangle as the thing they do for music, and then they're becoming a best triangle of the year award, probably a Grammy, and everyone's thinking Jack Harlow's gonna get it, and then it goes to Elton John, who's sitting at a massive triangle, piano shaped sort of triangle thing. It was, so I was a band director for 13 years, as I've surely mentioned before. So this idea of the most basic percussion instrument becoming this huge craze, really, really got to me. I thought it was hilarious. I was and then throwing in Elton John at the end, it was brilliant. So the haters who aren't recognizing how great that commercial is, what's wrong with you? It's a great commercial.
What's wrong? Okay, I did. What'd you think of the halftime show? I loved it.
Okay, so unpopular opinion. I thought it was okay, but that's partly because I'm not a huge Rihanna fan. I mean, I don't dislike her. I like a lot of her songs, but I'm not a fan, but I guess I just felt the set was interesting, it wasn't exciting. And her performance, because it was like mostly her singing and kind of like the accompanying musicians weren't a big part of like in the mix, it was mostly her voice, and she's a fantastic singer. That for me also wasn't very exciting. And the dancing was like okay, but kind of, because a lot of it was like shots from far away, you didn't really see what the dancers were doing as well. I don't know, I just felt like in terms of like the emotional and excitement level, it felt kind of like just along a line and not like peaks and valleys and ups and downs, and like it didn't feel like a journey. It felt like just kind of static in a lot of ways.
That makes sense. Yeah,
I think a lot of people would argue with a lot of that about me, and I would not necessarily argue back about it. I think this is a lot of personal preference and not at all meant as a statement about the quality of the work that Rihanna does, but it just wasn't, I don't know, it didn't really get me.
I am not, I know nothing about her music or her. I know her, sometimes her faces come up as GIFs, which I appreciate. I personally just like the kind of the spareness of it, because we've seen so much with other shows. I mean, my favorite show is probably when Prince was on.
Oh, so good. Top 3 ever. So good.
Right. So I'm not saying it has to be spare, but I just got into it. Maybe it was just the mood I was in, and people were complaining about the costumes, but I liked that confinement, as you might say. I thought it was really elegant. And when it gets super exciting and all that, sometimes you lose some of the elegance, but the Super Bowl isn't supposed to be elegant, so that's okay, so I understand why a lot of people wouldn't share that. I loved the costumes. I think I liked that they stayed the same throughout, because a lot of times there's a costume, 2 or 3 costume changes, which is really an art in and of itself. But I kind of appreciated that they stayed the same, because sometimes you just get used to one and you're really getting into it, and then they change it and you want to go back. But that's the part too that I think a lot of people are so used to, so they want more. Like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Whereas I was like, they totally explored those simple costumes and the set design and the different elevations. I would not want to be that high up. I can't imagine
dancing on a moving platform that high. No,
that was kind of weird. Yeah, but no, I kind of liked it. I like the simplicity of it.
So you used 2 words in there that I think were just super spot on. You said elegant and spare. And I think that really nicely sums up. It was both those things, for better or for worse, however you want to approach it.
Right.
I think I have gotten too used to like the spectacle of the halftime show and all the, glamour and all the craziness and stuff. Like, this was spare. And there's a lot to be said for that. So
yeah, maybe probably the mood I was in too,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to listen to spare music. Sometimes I want to put on Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen, which is just him and his voice and a guitar, and that's like the whole album. And like if you're not in the right mood, if you're like, man, I need some energy here, like that's not the thing to go with.
Right.
It's a mood thing.
Yeah,
I feel that.
Yeah my mood's a little, like, my energy level is a little low lately, so that's probably good for me.
It was the right show at the right time for you.
I liked it. I mean, I don't love her music or any of certainly the lyric, like, but it's like, that wasn't what I was looking at. I mean, and I did notice she was lip syncing at least most of the time. And I was like, why do they have to do that? But I think it would be hard not to in a situation like that.
Yeah. No shade for that from me at all. Like, you're strutting around in front of a million people. Like, no, lip sync all you need to.
Yeah, too many things can go wrong with mics, especially when you're trying to do all this stuff with the sage and the costume changes, and you could lose your mic. I mean, she didn't have costume changes in this case, but usually that's the case. There's a lot too that I've worked in theater. I know what that's what happens when an actor has to go off and then back on in a different costume in like 30 seconds. It's crazy. Not that easy to pull it off, and you wouldn't want to make a mistake on that kind of platform. Yeah.
Yes.
So Matt, any final thought? Was that your final?
Yeah. I was all done with my superheroes. Any final thoughts though? It's off season, so
it's kind of weird, huh? No football this Sunday.
Very sad thing. The USFL is kicking into gear. I want to say in April or something. I'm intrigued but it still means a while till that even happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good time to, well, like I said, what I was going to do is find non-football podcasts to listen to, but then there's just enough content to keep me busy this week. But yeah, it's a good time to just kind of see what else is out there. You had said before, I was going to mention, you're talking about your friend having lung cancer. And so like, just as a good reminder to, express your appreciation to your friends, to your family, to content creators, tell them how much you love their content like we do, just, you gotta tell people you love them when you have the chance to.
100%. And I've really been enjoying a lot of content too on YouTube here with the YouTube or LawTube, they call it LawTube.
Oh, okay.
So lawyers and trials, and still in the thick of the murder trial. And of course, Katie, my partner in crime, she's on vacation this week, so we didn't do a podcast. I was going to try and go live. I had a lot to say yesterday, but my health just hasn't been great, so I couldn't. And so I'm looking forward to her coming back, and she's going to be blown away. I don't know how much she's following. She said she wasn't going to be obviously watching the trial all day while she's on vacation, but I had to text her yesterday. I was like, I can't even remember what I told her, but it was big news. There was really big news again today too, so I'm looking forward to her coming back next week and doing that. So I have that. I have a lot of podcasts I listen to about a lot of different things. So yeah. I've been trying to get my art supplies back out so I can start being creative again. I have a whole workshop. I think I talked about that on our other podcast. And I'm in now with this Russian gal, and I cannot pronounce her name yet. I will learn. I'm like, oh, she could come over and I could set up all the whole workshop for her, and we could paint together and that kind of thing. So I have a lot of fun things to do. So many different hobbies, when it's not football season, but I'm really missing it already.
Yes.
I miss football already. So I know you look so sad.
Yeah, it's like when the Super Bowl, when the game was over, it's just like, oh man,
that's it.
There it is. That's football for many months. There it is. It was fun.
It goes so fast, but it's half the year practically. I mean, it's just like, what is it? 4? Did I say 4 shy of half the year? Really 2, because half would be 26 weeks. So it's 2 weeks shy of half of a year. But it seems like it goes so fast.
It seems to go so fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Dawn. Should we wrap her up here?
Let's bring her home.
Okay, friends. Of course, you'll find links in our show description. Wait a minute. I was going to say something else. I was just going to say real fast. Katie Sunderman, if you're listening, my goodness, we love you.
Oh, we do.
That's all. That's all I just want to say. Holy cow, Katie, you're the best. Okay. So, friends, of course, you'll find links in our show description for everyone we mentioned, so please check it out. Also, we'd love to have a chance to interview you and shout you out if you're a subscriber and a football fan, or not a football fan. That's all good. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know. Our DMs are open on all the social platforms. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us to keep spreading the love in our community. And the best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, Maddie, that's right, because we love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL. We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod. And we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.